أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والتين والزيتون وطور سينين وهذا البلد الأمين لقد خلقنا الإنسان في أحسن تقويم ثم رددناه أسفل سافلين إلا الذين آمنوا وعملوا الصالحات فلهم أجرهم غير ممنون فما يكذبك بعد بالدين أليس الله بأحكم الحاكمين صدق الله العظيم.
Jazakallah khair, Nadeem bhai. May Allah shower His blessings on all of us. In fact, the idea was not only, using it to get to know each other. In fact, it was also said that why don't we update our members on what's happening, for the month. For example, what is that we have done for the entire month of May. So we thought, who can else be the right person than the president of our chamber? I would like to request our president to come and then give his presidential address along with sharing what exactly are the updates of the month of May. Over to you, President.
Thank you, Kaleem. Assalamu alaikum to everybody. What can I say? I think it has been a very difficult month for many of us. Before we get into our UEF related activities, I think it's been a very sad state of affairs as far as our members and close partners are concerned. We've been losing a lot of very, very close members, partners, supporters, advisors, and it's been very difficult. I'm sure I'm not the only one who's saying this. We lost Dr. Kamal Sharif, we lost Nawaz. It's been a terrible shock, and I think it's Sheikh has very nicely conveyed a lot of messages about Nawaz. Absolutely fantastic person, very, very actively committed to the whole UEF cause. Always very, very sort of generous, in terms of his contribution, in terms of his support, in terms of everything. He's been so generous. It's a big loss. So month of May has been very tough. We are seeing the highest number of COVID cases. We are seeing lots of people passing away. Like I said, Nawaz, and you had Nadeem bhai, who's Afzal bhai's uncle. We had, I think, Abdul Rakib Saab's two brothers passed away. We heard about Islamia College, Vaniambadi. I think there have been two senior office bearers who passed away. Of course, Dr. Kamal Sharif, and a host of other people we keep hearing. I really, pray that Almighty gives them Jannatul Firdaus, and all the family members to deal with this irreparable loss, and for each and every one of us to sort of also get over this loss. And as with everything in life, we have to keep moving, and hopefully, inshallah, the UEF family provides some sort of comfort, some sort of soothing effect to everybody. We are here. UEF is very much here to support each and every one, and may Allah make it easy for all of us. So this is what I wanted to start with, as far as the the COVID situation and the people we have passed away with. Otherwise, I think more business as usual. We've been sending lots of greetings, Eid greetings to everybody, Eid Mubarak to each and every one of you. We had a remembrance meeting for Dr. Kamal Sharif. Let's remember all the good things that people contributed, right? All the good learnings that we have, the contributions. So no doubt that Dr. Kamal Sharif has been a phenomenal supporter. For those of you who attended the remembrance function, I think it was really, really nice for the number of people to come and say, a number of things about him. Then we've been sort of working very closely. UEF has been contributing to the children's homes. We have had, alhamdulillah, we've been very fortunate that our members have contributed almost 2.3 crores to the CM Relief Fund. Very, very good contribution, as you would have noticed. Brother Jahir Hussain has organized a meeting in Japan for COVID relief. Then we've joined hands with RICE for supporting their initiatives, and then we've been giving a lot of support for their initiatives that they've been doing. We are working together with one of the projects now, real estate project. Brother Sajid, we are working. UEF team is working along with him. We are trying to see how to support the project unlock value. It's about 120-acre parcel in Oragadam, and sometime in the future we will request Brother Sajid also to make a presentation on the project. Keep going, please.
That's it, sir. These are a few
So
points.
the latest we've been working on is the project. We are trying to see what we can do there, and of course the newsletters. We made a video. I think last time you made a video on Dr. Kamal Sharif, right?
Yes, sir.
I think there was
On his
also which was made, and so these have been activities. Nothing overly elaborate. But then the good thing is I keep hearing about people who are connected to UEF. When we open the newspaper, we read people who are connected to the UEF. Deepak Bagla, who was a speaker at our World Summit, we keep hearing about Sridhar Vembu, whom as you all know, I met 2-3 months back. Suresh Sambandam of KISFlow has been very active. He's been sort of talking a lot about developing Tamil Nadu and whatnot. So he's also been in touch with us. So we've been in touch with all these people to take our UEF cause forward. And inshallah, with the new government which is in place, I think that's also another big development as far as May is concerned. A new regime has come in. Not that the earlier regime was any less supportive of us. Hopefully, this regime will also be as supportive, if not more supportive. And inshallah, we'll be able to actively take forward the projects that we have in mind along with the current government. So till now, I've also personally sent greetings to many of the people who've come into power now. So hopefully we will go introduce UEF to them and also garner their support for the UEF cause. And inshallah, we'll be able to do something interesting in the next 3 to 5 years. Right, as usual, we have got veteran presenters for this members talk. I'm very eagerly looking forward to all the sessions which are there today. We have got the City Hospital, Dr. Abul Hassan. I'm very eagerly looking forward, although we've known Doctor so intimately. I also always want to see a formal presentation on what is happening. Brother Miran is here, Professional Couriers. I know nobody in this room will be without knowing Professional Courier Miran Saab, but it will be interesting for us to know more about the company specific. Senmark, I think Brother Yasser is presenting about the water. Like I told you last time, I was pleasantly surprised to see him in Kutralam a couple of months back for the water. And of course, we will see what our B.S. Abdurrahman, President Institute of Science and Technology, has to say also. So thank you very much. I hope it's going to be an interesting session today. So back to you, Kalim.
Thanks a lot, President, for your kind words. Your words are inspiring as always. The first presentation, if I think how could I, describe this person, one quote that comes to my mind is that not all angels have wings. There are few who have got a stethoscope. One such person who is immensely contributing through his human services during these difficult times. He is the founder of Erode City Hospital. He is also the head panel of Olirum Foundation. And more importantly, he is the director of UEF Chamber of Commerce. In spite of all his busyness, he is noted by the district collector. In fact, the district collector banks on him in order to stop the COVID spread. In spite of all his busy schedule, the kind of contribution he did during World Summit 2020 as a vice chairman was something beyond words. I would like to call upon our director, Dr. Abul Hassan Saab, to share what exactly are the services that he and his hospital does during these difficult times. Over to you, Dr. Saab.
Thank you, Sharif. Assalamu alaikum, President, my dear co-directors and members of United Economic Forum. As President mentioned, that my first formal presentation, but in fact, we had participated in all the UEF events, put up stalls, and put up all the pictures, activities of City Hospital. But nevertheless, I will be happy to tell you a few things in 15 minutes time about our activities in City Hospital, and also lots of social commitments in and around Erode. We are City Hospital. Alhamdulillah, it has become a landmark in Erode. Many of the jewelries, very many brands have come right and left of us. It is our hospital located in the arterial road, like Mount Road in Chennai. This RKV road is a very important road, and we have got a very big and building there in that road. And many of the, as I said, brands are advertising that it is such a jewelry is next to City Hospital. So this kind of, landmark. I know myself, I'm a qualified super specialist in pediatric surgery and general surgeon, a laparoscopy surgeon, and my wife is a radiologist and sonologist. My both sons are coming and going to take over. Not only take over and also going to form additional departments in our City Hospital. And this is a kind of growth we had. We started in 1999. Very many people still call me about this date. Oh, you are very particular about this. Something it was, passionate about this number. So we started in 1999, and the first expansion after getting some land adjacent 2003. Some more land we acquired and then expanded further 2011. Okay. This is the last one is the present building, which has about 45 beds working. These are all the pictures I would like to share in 99, 2003, and 2011. You can see Dr. Alauddin, Mr. Alauddin when he was the health secretary, he came to inaugurate the building. Here you can see Krishnamachari Srikanth also. At that time, he was the chairman of selection committee of cricket team. So the pictures of various inaugurations happened over a period of time. The facilities wise, we are mainly a surgical center. Being a surgeon, I do lots of pediatric surgery work, general surgery, and laparoscopy surgery. All state-of-art facilities are there. In addition, we have endoscopy. We have a trauma unit for children separately, and scan, dialysis, cystoscopy, lab X-ray, all the other requirements which a modern hospital should be recurring. All we have, including mammography, which is a machine to detect breast cancer at the earliest point of time. These are the pictures of emergency, mainly what are the laparoscopy surgery we mainly do. That is a picture of laparoscopic work that is done. Our vision to become trusted destination for healthcare needs of the country by achieving professional excellence, establishing state-of-art infrastructure and facility that are certified by national and international regulatory organization. I am happy to share with you that our City Hospital is one of the first few hospitals in Europe to get NABH accreditation. Our mission is to provide patient-centric, patient-first, evidence-based, world-class medical treatment. The quality policy, we at a City Hospital are committed to provide quality medical care with uncompromised reliability. We will always strive to create an environment of service to give high level and satisfaction to our patients. We will also work towards continually upgrading our human resources, technology, and the effectiveness of quality management system. I just read all these things. We have put up this kind of board in our hospital outside for a patient to see as per the norms of NABH accreditation. So coming to our team, we have 46 beds. We have 5 floors, and we have 3 resident medical officers working around the clock. We have 25 experienced nurses and 28 other supportive staff like assistant nurses, ward boys, and sweepers like that. And the workload is about, we see 100 new patients in OP every day, maybe 70 patients in the morning and 30 patients in the evening. It comes to nearly roughly 3,000 patients per month. The inpatients are about 35 to 40. Operations is the main thing, main volume in our work. We start the operations in the morning. Every day we do about 5 to 10 operations, both minor and major. We start at 6 o'clock. We are the early bird. After Fajr Namaz, we start the work by 5:36. You can see many people used to ask me, many doctors, why there is huge crowd in the early morning of every day in your hospital, because many of the attenders of the patients getting operation, they come in the morning. There will be huge crowd in front of the hospital the early morning every day, and it will be surprising for others to see. By 12 o'clock, we finish all the operations. After 12, I am free. I am free to see all my OP patients and also do other kind of social activities. These are the common operations I do almost every day. On gallbladder operation, uterus removal, appendicectomy, hernia operations. We have done many very rare operations also that are brought a real name and fame to our hospitals. Many very life critical operations we have done. We are continuously doing all types of cancer operations, urological operations by inviting urologists and orthopedics and so on. And this is a minor operation. You know that there are lots of hernia, hydrocele in children, and including circumcision. This is a map which shows our city hospital attracts patients across the state. We are also one of the empaneled hospital for this unknown patients. Unknown patients we do free of cost. Only they will have to pay their medicines and so on. So we get patients for every district. Every day, even out of 45 patients, if we take, people will be there from all the districts. I have a very big passion for treating. So I not only do a lot of laparoscopy operations, I also teach doctors how to do laparoscopy. That's why I got the honorary professorship from IMA. Because of this work, I can show you some pictures of my students who come and gets training under me in the laparoscopy and also cystoscopy. This is a very passionate work I'm doing amidst our busy schedule. Saturdays, Sundays, most of the time I'm engaged in doing this kind of teaching work. Yeah, and also I do education, public education in TV, appear on TV, addressing queries. Now and then you can see that. Another important work our hospital team has taken up is the teaching of basic life support. This is called Jeevan. I started this. I used to take all my paramedical staff with me and teach police personnel, students, and even public. You can see so many programs, more than 100, countless. I cannot count this, how many programs I did this. I wanted to dissipate this knowledge of restarting a stopped heart. This is a basic life support, how we can revive a patient who suffered a cardiac arrest within the 5 to 10 minutes. If you are around, and then you can definitely save a patient who has such a heart attack or a cardiac arrest. But without giving any medicines, by doing this simple technique of cardiac massage and artificial respiration, you can save a life till ambulance arrives and give them some injection and oxygen. Without that, you can. So this is an important message we have been carried out. We have been doing it for the past 20-25 years. And we also do lots of cancer detection camps on behalf of our hospital. That is another area we work. All of you may be aware that I am running a cancer palliative care center. So I have lots of enthusiasm and interest rather to detect many cancer patients and cure them. These are all some of the photographs I like to show the camps that we are conducting on behalf of City Hospital Erode. The society is fully aware that we have doing lots of social activities like this and doing lots of betterment for the health of Erode people. And another important work we did is free plastic surgery camps. You can see in the blue dress, Dr. Deekshik used to come from United States of America and stay here for 5 to 6 years. Continuously, he was coming for 5 years. And we used to operate lots of cleft lip and palate patients free of cost. Nearly 300 to 400 cases we used to operate in that 5 days to 6 days time. So the pictures, and he is no more now. Couple of years back he died. And this particular plastic surgery camp is very famous in Europe when our hospital was doing this. Coming to COVID camp, we have done a lot of activities personally, my own behalf and also on behalf of City Hospital. And Sharif also told me to elaborate more on this, because we were one of the few people who immediately jumped into that field of identifying and isolating and also treating COVID patients. Though we are not treating COVID patients inside our hospital, this is a kind of social service we are doing. And collector was very much appreciative of my work. He used to call me in the morning, doctor, will go, you join me, we will go there and there, here and there. And I was contributing a lot to the achievement, great achievement. At one day, we could bring 0%, 0 cases for Europe at one point of time, and we maintained it for a period of 30 days. So collector appreciated my work, and even in the PPT presented by the government, that they showed my picture that because of him only we bring down the cases to nil in Europe. Of course, now it has become much more, you all know that, the cases again. And again, we are doing lots of activity. This is the mobile the COVID detection van that I had organized. And I did a wonderful job last year, and we are doing this year also. And the collector appreciated my work in the Independence Day celebrations by giving a Corona Warrior Award of Erode district. And another important area where I work, even our Buhari Saab had come and visited this Cancer Palliative Care Center, which I have organized and running and started in 2006. And now 15 years over our this center is still open. Not even a day it was closed. So many cancer patients in their last days were housed in our IMAM and were given palliative care. And I am spending some time every day, maybe between the 5 to, in spite of my busy schedule, I go there and take care of these patients. If not every day, I go there once in 3 days. We have appointed full-time doctor also there. So we are still maintaining it. 1,200 cancer patients so far lived in our home as a guest. And the last rites also were done by our team of people in the IMAM. You can see pictures of then President and APJ Abdul Kalam Saab came on my invitation. It was a very, very big event I could imagine in my life and could have done in my lifetime. That is the function of inauguration of IMAM with the President of India, sitting President of India. That was a great event, most memorable event in my life. It was inaugurated on 18/12/2006. And these are the activities of IMAM. As I said, all kinds of cancer patients, they come and stay there. We give them food, nursing care, and all kinds of care, medicines, injections, even chemotherapy, radiotherapy, sometimes all given free. And we are spending nearly about 9 lakhs of rupees every year for maintaining this center. And is another trust I have formed in my hospital. It's called City Relief Guild, mainly to help people who are requiring organ transplantation, like kidney transplantation, liver transplantations. I have formed a separate guild for that, and people are giving donations, and we help even for bone marrow up to the tune of 10 lakhs to 12 lakhs for a single patient. Single patient, we could do it through this trust. This is the news about the trust. This is another area, another big, like United Economic Forum. United Economic Forum is the most valued association for me. I always, value that much. But here there is a NGO, civil society organization, which I was a key person in forming it, as called Olirum Erode Foundation. It takes, I can tell you most of my work now. I'm the president of health panel and I have done lots of work. Most of the work is done by this office itself. So I don't move around so much, but even then there is, I'm running a dialysis center, a government hospital with 12 beds, 90 patients are undergoing in dialysis. At this point of time, about 25 people are working, dialysis technicians are working, and we are doing it in scheme. And Tata Sons Trust had given more than 1 crore of rupees donated for this center. This center is doing very well. Like IMAM, this is another one of the important service which is run by my initiation. And we have upgraded so many other hospitals in and around. Water Watersautom is another my brainchild to alleviate malnutrition. I want to see all children Watersautom. எல்லாம் நல்லா வாட்டர் சாட்டமா இருக்கணும் அப்படிங்கிறதுக்காக இது ஒரு பிக் ஸ்கீம். இஸ் a 10 crore scheme. We have so much of money in that scheme to alleviate malnutrition. That means give protein rich food, protein rich powder to those children who are underweight, who are undernourished, and who are stunted, not to the height of requirements, to the age. This is another Watersautom. It is going on. So far 6,200 children are in our list, and they are getting this protein powder every day, and it's producing wonderful results. And in another separate meeting, I can explain it in a detail. Another important work today, which keeps me very busy, is a free COVID hospital that has become big hit in Erode, that a private center can run a completely free COVID treatment center. People are still not believing it. We are running it completely free. We are running it 100. Again, on my initiation, on my responsibility, Olirum Erode decided to do this biggest endeavor on the platform from Olirum Erode Foundation. We have almost budgeted about 3 crores of rupees as my presentation of requirement for a period of 5 to 6 months for this second wave. And this is going on. We have 150 beds totally full now. Out of 150, 100 beds are oxygen bed. And so far we have discharged 468 patients, all right, become completely cured of COVID disease. And the remaining other hundreds of patients are undergoing treatment. We have also treated many patients OPD also. I am not going to elaborate on my activities in Indian Medical Association. Many of you may be aware that I am a very important and very active office bearer of Indian Medical Association in the whole country. I'm now having the post of chairman of IMA Junior Doctors Network, in which we are doing 3 helplines, IMA helplines, one for the Delhi police personnel. There are 10,000 Delhi police personnel. 20 doctors of our team are doing this work. And our COVID helpline, another national helpline. One more helpline is done in Tamil Nadu state COVID helpline. And I am the main person which compiled the data of doctors who died in COVID, both 2020 and 2021. So every information you see in the TV and the media and anywhere that so many doctors died in the state or the nationwide, all the information given by me only. I am collecting from a team of doctors across the country in a network of people. I give them that my data only is given in the parliament, on the TV and the news every time, now and then. I have been awarded best doctor by Dr. MGR Medical University and also Tamil Nadu Medical Council. I am one of the very few doctors in the state who received best doctor awards both the biggest institutions of state, Tamil Nadu MGR Medical University and also Medical Council. This is award which recently received in Delhi. Delhi Health Minister Sri Satyendra Jain given this COVID Warrior Award for my work in the COVID times. I have a great passion like Bukhari Saab in agriculture also. Just so one slide that I have got purchased after starting my hospital. Slowly I accumulated agriculture land. Now we have around 7.5 acres of agriculture land, and I am actively, cultivating paddy there, and that work is going on. We are running now a school. I am the president of this Annur school. I am the president, and Mr. Rafiq, KKSK Rafiq, our OEF member. You all know him very well. He is the secretary of the school. That is also running very well. And finally, I would like to end my presentations saying that I always value this particular work very well. That is my job and my assignment in United Economic Forum. I wanted to very much show you this particular picture where I had a program in Erode, back in Erode, where Bukhari Saab, Kamal Sharif Shah and Abdullah Saab, all office bearers, Altaf Hussain Saab, you can see, all had descended down to Erode and had a very good meeting. Happened in 2012. Subsequently, we had in 2014 also Habib and Sajid, all the other office bearers also had come to United Economic Forum. And United Economic Forum is kind of sensitized our people back in Erode and in and around Erode of the youth of our area about entrepreneurship. And there's another my dream project. And in spite of all, amidst all these activities, my sleep, every time I sleep with this is the medical college project that is going on. And we have finished most of the paperwork, groundwork, land work, architectural work. And we are starting a small OPD building now. And our president also part of this project. And maybe in the years to come, once my boys, my sons come and take most of my work, maybe I will be dedicating more time in forming this mega project of medical college and a hospital and a Salihin Education and Charitable Trust. So that's all from my side today. Thank you very much for the opportunity. Thank you for patiently listening to my presentation. Thank you.
Absolutely fantastic, Dr. Saab. Hearty congratulations, Mabruk. Like before starting the presentation, I was telling you, we thought we knew a little bit about what you're doing, but this is phenomenal. Neenga pandra vela vande mashallah, I think ஒரு 100 பேருக்குள்ள வேலை நீங்க பண்ற மாதிரி தெரியுது டாக்டர். It's absolutely fantastic. Very, very proud and happy that you're supporting us and we're all together in this, and it's a big revelation. I knew a lot of things, but I didn't know so many things. Maybe you're just moving the goalpost, maybe I know a little bit and you just start doing it. So, mashallah, it's absolutely fantastic. Thank you so much, doctor. I hope we'll be also able to support and you'll keep continuing to do this absolutely wonderful service to the community. Mashallah. Thank you, doctor.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, doctor.
Thanks a lot, Dr. Saab. Truly inspiring, as said by President. In fact, the next presentation, how can I explain about this person? A person who was born from the smallest towns of Tirunelveli district, a modest background where his father was renting bicycles. From that, where he started his career working for a merry, rupees 180 as a telephone operator, to establishing an empire where today more than 2,000 people, 90 branches, a person who is professional not only by name, but his company name is also Professional Couriers. As far as Tamil Nadu is concerned, I would say he has got 8,000. He heads a team where they have 900 branches and 8,000 employees. A true person who not only does business, but lot of social activities, community activities. He got his own school, United Public School, where close to 2,500 students studying. I can go on saying about this great person, a true icon of our community. Without wasting much of my words, I would like to call upon Miran Saab to share his inspiring journey. Over to you, Miran Kaka.
A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Respected seniors of UEF, members of UEF, Assalamu alaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. First of all, I appreciate my previous speaker, Dr. Abdul Hassan Sahib, for his excellent services being given to the people of Erode. MashaAllah, he has shared his inspiring story. Alhamdulillah, it is all a motivation to all of us. Alhamdulillah. I'm also very happy and honored to be here in this UEF, the UEF association, and also I'm very happy to share my success story of myself as well as my company in the professional careers. Alhamdulillah, we all know that success will not happen as it happens in a highway suddenly. Success will happen only through a long journey. We need to plan our success right from younger ages. So as I already told by our brother Sharif that I was born in Kalakadu, a small town Panchayat in Tirunelveli district, and when we belong to a middle income group, little less than middle income group only. My father was running a cycle repair shop, also renting the cycles for her. And when I was 3 years old, he went to Sri Lanka for better prospects. So almost 7 years he was away from my native place, and the responsibility of taking care of us rested on with my mother. I have 2 siblings. I am the eldest, and my younger brother and a sister. So when I was growing at the age of 12, 13, I belong to very poor family. I started thinking of developing myself, how to be successful in the future, what kind of steps we should take. That kind of normally a boy will think about at the age. So that kind of thinking developed. I had developed that kind of thinking, and I thought that reading is one of the skills you should possess. You should develop your reading skills. You should develop your general knowledge. So accordingly, I used to visit my library at the Kalakadu Panchayat library. I will be visiting daily, every day in the evening, and I was going through newspapers, weekly magazines, and I used to study a lot of stories, books, and all. So this gave a lot of confidence to me, and also it gave a lot of ideas, skills, and various knowledge I developed by my reading habit. Then after I completing my 11th standard, I joined St. Xavier's College. I have studied PUC. Then I joined Sadakuttalappa College for BCom. When I was studying my second year BCom, I happened to see an advertisement in the paper recruit that postal department, telecommunication department, asking for applications for the post of telephone operators. So since I got a good marks in my 11th standard, I applied for the job, and alhamdulillah, by God's grace, I got the job also. I got the job, and immediately I consulted my HOD, and he told me that அரசாங்க வேலையெல்லாம் ரொம்ப கடினமா கிடைக்கிறது, this is குதிரை கொம்பு, so you better join and complete the 3rd year through correspondence. So I took his advice, and immediately I discontinued my studies, and I joined my job, telephone department, telephone operator, and also I completed my 3rd year through correspondence. Alhamdulillah, then when I was working in my job, I was preparing myself for my next career developments, whether I should go into the departmental promotions. As I am a BCom graduate, I can develop myself into junior accounts officer, senior accounts officer, like that I can promote myself. Or since my relatives are in the business, I thought that business is the right choice for me, because there you can work, you can work very hard and also attain a great success, and there is no limit for your success. So accordingly, I decided to look for some business avenues. As I told you, my background is very small, simple, and I also don't have as much money. So I started saving some money also, slowly and steadily. And meanwhile, I was looking at various avenues. I used to study each and every business, each and every small business, big business, how they are doing, what they are doing. Likewise, since this telephone department job is a shift job. It is like a shift, morning shift, evening shift, night shift and all. So I spend some time in the evening or the morning studying various business opportunities. And Alhamdulillah, when you have a good niyyah, definitely Alhamdulillah, Allah SWT also will come forward to help you. That is a belief of our Muslims. So accordingly, I got an opportunity to start a small business venture in Tirunelveli in 1980. Tata Oil stockist business, a small business with an investment of 1 lakh by each partner. We two joined together and put 2 lakh rupees and started this Tata Oil stockist business. It's a small distribution business in Tirunelveli as well as Panangota. And so I was posted initially I was posted in Nagarkoil, then I worked in Kayalpatnam for 2 years in 1976. Then I was transferred to Tirunelveli 1976. So I started this business in 1980. Alhamdulillah, it was going well. And the second year, in 1981, I happened to come to Chennai and I visited a travel agency in Chennai, Sita World Travels. You might have heard about that. When I saw the travel agency, I was very much impressed the way in which they are working. And immediately I contacted some employees and how I should start this kind of business in Tirunelveli. So I got some inputs, and immediately in 1981, I started a travel agency in Tirunelveli, a small way. Everything I started in a small way only. So then I was running travel agency as well as this Tata Oil stockist business while I was continuing the job. So in 1983, I decided to go further. I thought that this stockist business is not very much lucrative. The commission was very low. We used to get only 3% of commission and it was not running profitably. So I decided to move to Chennai and I told my partner that you take care of this stockist business. I'll move to Chennai. I came to Chennai in 1983 and I started my second branch in Chennai near the Gemini flyover by the name Omega Travels. Alhamdulillah, it was picking up. Meanwhile, I happened to meet my colleague who worked together, who worked with me in telephone department. He worked in telephone department. Later on, he joined Air India. I met him and I told him about this kind of business ventures, and we exchanged our views. And since he worked in Air India and I was doing this travel agency, I used to go there to get his help for tickets, confirmations, for other jobs and all. So I told him that I want to develop further. So Alhamdulillah, later on, after 1 year, in 1985, I got a call from him saying that his friend came from Kochi and wanted to replace a working agent in Chennai. A courier agency was there. One fellow was running it and he wanted to replace him with a new agent because the old agent is not interested to run the business. So I was introduced to him. Hello. So I was introduced to him and immediately I was appointed as his agent. The company name was Coast Courier Private Limited. So I became the agent of that Coast Courier in 1985. And later on, we had some problem in the company. And after 1 year, myself, we have 3 agents, and also we have some of our senior managers. We all joined together and decided to start a professional couriers in 1986. Alhamdulillah, that was my turning point. That was my turning point in my life, that we started our own courier company in 1986. Initially, we named it as a Coast International, and later on, we named it as Professional Couriers in 1987. 1/11/1987, the company was born, and I joined with my 8 colleagues and started this company 1897. And we are all given individual responsibility of developing the respective region. Accordingly, I was given Tamil Nadu. Likewise, my colleagues have been given Kerala, Andhra, Karnataka, Maharashtra, and all. Immediately, we developed them. And by 1993, Alhamdulillah, we have developed on a franchise system. Our company is working on a franchise system. Normally, you might have seen a lot of companies like DHL or Bulldot or DTDC. These are our competitors. But of course, these 2 companies, this DHL and FedEx, are all international competitors. But in the domestic market, we are one among the top 3-4 companies in India now, right now. The other names are DTDC, the professional couriers. Number 2, number 3, we can say Tracon, and other couriers are there. So we can say we are top 3, one of the top 2 companies in India right now. And we have allowed, since we are in the 1987, 18 and all, as we had less in the money, less, we don't have that kind of knowledge. So we thought that we went for this franchise system and we offered our name to each and every applicant in each and every city. And we allowed them to use our name, and we have given a full freedom to them, allowing them to take major part of their revenue. We collected only a small part of revenue from them, and that was our strength, because we didn't have our own office in all the places. We appointed them as a franchisee, their own investment, their own risk, their own. So each and every franchisee worked together. We all worked together and invested heavy money. We have worked hard and made a big success across India. Right now, we have 1,400 franchises across India, and and we are doing a very good service, Alhamdulillah. As far as I am concerned, my business interest in Chennai, as well as Alhamdulillah, I have some couple of offices in Tamil Nadu. Also, we have another company called the Professional Couriers Network Limited, which takes care of North India and East India of 23 states. As a major shareholder, I am running this company, and put together we are doing more than 200 crores rupees, 200 crores turnover, Alhamdulillah, through this courier service. Apart from that, we have this Repute FMC company. We have this Repute Water, as well as we have some other products. We are slowly developing it. This is a second venture, Alhamdulillah. Also, we are in a restaurant business. I started a restaurant called Grill Box. Initially, it was named as a Mouthful. Later on, it was named as a Grill Box. And since my brother-in-law existed from the business, I was compelled to take over the business. We had two branches. One is in RK Saleh, Mylapore, and another is in T Nagar. Because of this pandemic, we have closed one unit in T Nagar. Alhamdulillah, we are running successfully this RK Mylapore restaurant. It's a special theme restaurant. I think you might have heard about this barbecue nation, and as well as Absolute Barbecue. Likewise, we all run this restaurant, Alhamdulillah. So apart from that, since as I told you that I hail from a small village, since my parents have educated me, and that because of my education, I raised to this level. So I started giving something to the society by going into the education arena. Alhamdulillah, by this way, I have started my first school in Adambakam, Unity Public School. I see normally, as I told you, that I used to read a lot of big leaders. So accordingly, I thought that first I appointed, without the school, first I appointed a principal. In 2004, I first identified a principal. I told him that, sir, this is my idea. Along with my admin manager, go and identify a school. So he went there and identified a closed building in Adambakam. And we started our first school, Unity Public School, in 2004. The first year, the strength was 14. Alhamdulillah. Next year, we got 150. Likewise, we developed. And it was a playful starting. I didn't know the rules and regulations of the school. Later on, I know that we need minimum requirements of 12 grounds to start 8 grounds to start a school. And for CB school, we need a minimum 1 acre. So I was looking for a big ground, and Alhamdulillah, I got a 1 acre ground in Kotur. So we moved the school, that Unity Public School, to Koturpuram in 2008, and we made it as a CBSE school. And the Adambakam school was converted into a matriculation school. And also we started a third school at Kobalapuram, a feeder school. Meanwhile, we also took over a government area school in Alvar Tirunelveli in Tuticorin district. So right now we are running 4 schools with a strength of 3,500 students. Alhamdulillah, in our school we teach Arabic as a language, as well as also we also help the students to recite Al Quran. Also we conduct Hifz classes. So far we have produced more than 100 Hifz reciters. Alhamdulillah, they have memorized, and we have produced more than 100 almost put together, both boys and girls. And it is one of the premier school, I can say, it's a great demand for that. Every year we got a good demand for the school children. Alhamdulillah, we also proposing to start a fifth school in Avadi. We purchased a property. This is my social service. Also, I am involved in various activities. We run ICLAS IAS Academy. Also, I'm very happy to be a part of this UEF. These are and also I just want to inform about my this this courier is a part of logistics. The logistics, in logistics we have a very good future. Logistics is a work word where you can have a warehousing, supply chain management. You can have a distribution of products. Whereas we have this last mile delivery. We handle as a courier company. We handle last mile delivery, and also we also went into the e-com business. We have tied up with some companies, and try to handle their e-com products also. But it's a challenge job because exclusively we should do some kind of e-com business. We are trying to do that also. In international, I think you might be having about DHL and FedEx. They own more than 900 aircrafts on their own. These are the international couriers. In India, we are one of the top couriers, and we run a lot of trucks, vehicles to move our products between the cities in India. Also, we use commercial airlines and some cargo airlines to move our products. This is our success story, and I request all our seniors and juniors to educate your children with the reading knowledge. That is what you call takeaway. I want to give you reading. Developing the reading habit at the young age definitely will put our children in a fantastic future. As well as we need to empower community. Alhamdulillah, we have to do a lot of things to empower community. Alhamdulillah, with this, I thank the UEF for giving this opportunity to share my success story with our members. Thank you very much. All the best.
Thank you very much, Miran Saab. You look like you are multiple veterans rolled into one. The McDonald's strategy, McDonald's did what do you call the franchise strategy.
Yeah.
Jim Collins, talks of good to great, where you have to appoint first to appoint the CEO and then principal, then start the school. That's like, so you're like all these things rolled into one. Mashallah, it's fantastic. Of course, like I said earlier during Doctor's presentation also, even though we know each other, in-depth the amount of activities that you're doing and the breadth of the activity and the franchise model and the school and the expansion of the school, and it's truly remarkable. Truly remarkable. I think Hanif Bhai has a question. I think we'll take the questions after the session. Kalim, just make a note of Hanif Bhai's question and maybe forward it to Miran Saab, and then later on we'll take the questions after the session is over. So, Jazakallah, Miran Saab. Thank you very much.
Jazakallah.
Impromptu அப்படி ஒண்ணு prepare பண்ணாம அப்படியே சொல்லிட்டியா? இதெல்லாம் மனசுல உள்ள இருக்குது போல இருக்குலாம். It just came out just like that.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. So, back to you, Kalim.
Yes, thanks a lot. We have made a note, Miran Kaka, there is a question which we will share to you so that you can do once the other two presentations are over. In fact, one of our key members' tagline is building relationship. I think it is RWD's tag, building relationship. We also in UAE firmly believe in building relationships. There was a father by name Iqbal Saab, a veteran in Indian Force who was a member of UAE. Now the turn was for his son to become a member. He actually has done a lot of research on drip irrigation, a lot of things for a year or so. He founded a company and he's the managing director of Senmark Agronomics, which is into manufacturing of drip and sprinkler irrigation. To share more about this, I would like to call upon Brother Yasser to share in his inspiring journey and what exactly his aims are. Over to you, Brother Yasser.
Assalamu alaikum, everyone. It's a hard time for us. I think may Allah Ta'ala will take away from this pandemic and give us a normal life. And I would like to thank our President for giving this opportunity. And I'd like to welcome each one of you for this session. Myself, Razar, I'm the Managing Director of Senmark Agronomics Private Limited. we are the manufacturers of drip irrigation pipes. This session, I would like to cover water, agriculture in the global and agriculture in India, government initiatives for agriculture, then technologies in the agriculture, then about my team. So next slide, please. So our Earth, it's called as a blue planet. So I don't want to go much about my company because we are in the crawling stage. So I would like to educate more about the industry first. So first we have to go for a water. So water, if you look into it in the Earth, almost 71% of Earth is surrounded by water. Remaining 29% is the land, out of which 12% is using for agriculture. Human habitation we are using for 0.05% only. So next slide, please. So breakdown of global water, as I already told, 71% of water, almost 97.4% in that it's occupied by oceans. Remaining, we have a fresh water of only 2.6%, out of which 1.9% is in the ice format and 0.59% in the ground, and readily accessible water is only 0.01%. So it's in the form of rivers, lakes, etc. So we have a readily accessible water is only 0.01%. It is readily available for us. So next slide, please. So this is how the world is using the fresh water. So 69% they are using for agriculture in the world, 23% for industries, 8% for domestic purpose. When you go to Europe, they are using 54% for industries, only 33% for agriculture, remaining 13% for domestic purpose. Whereas if you look into India, we are using 87% of the fresh water for agriculture. Only 8% for industries, 5% for domestic purpose. You just look into the size. When you go to United States, they are using 41% for agriculture, 46% for industries, 13% for the domestic purpose. Whereas in Israel, we have to talk about actually, because when we talk about water, we have to talk about Israel. So Israel, they have a very good technology. There is no doubt on it. They are using 52% for agriculture, 13% for industries, 35% for domestic purpose. You just look into this, 35% they are using for the domestic purpose. So according to this slide, developing countries, they are using more water for agriculture, whereas developed countries, they are using more water for industries. Next slide, please. So this is when you talk about water, our fresh water source is obviously rainfall. If you look into this picture, the dark blue colors are getting more rainfall. Whereas if you go to India, India has a better rainfall of 100 centimeter average rainfall in a year, whereas US 30 to only 62 centimeter. But when you go to Israel, that white marks we can see, Israel, Gulf countries, and Northern African countries, all they are get very, very less rainfall. So next slide, please. So obviously they are getting very less rainfall, so they have to go for a proper water management. I'm talking about Israel now. So in 2005, if you look into it, they are using 70% of natural water, whereas in 2020, just look into it, they are getting only 50% of the natural water. So remaining portion, they have to go for the technology. So there is no doubt on it. So they have to go for a backbreach water desalination or seawater desalination, whatever it may be, or a treated wastewater. So they are the number one, as they don't have a proper water source. They have to go for a recycling process. That's what they are number one in the world. Almost 86% of their water, it's treated water only. Next slide. So what is best for India? If you look into it, Israel, as I already told, Israel is a water scarcity control country, which requires expensive desalination and better water recycling management process. So that's what they're just adding up new technologies into the thing. But when you compare to India, India has a very good rainfall actually. So we have a more than 100 centimeter rainfall, which is amazing actually. We are best actually. So we don't require this desalination unit and all, but for industries we can go for, but for agriculture, we need a proper rainfall water management system. So that required, it's a need of our right now. So if you look into the traditional water management, if there is a heavy rainfall in Kerala, it will reach as Ramnad. But right now, if it's a heavy rainfall over there, so that full state, it's collapsed. So it's maybe because of the missed water management only. At the same time, if you look into it in India, in each city, town or village, if you look into it, there will be a reservoir. So in every city, there will be a reservoir. So this is the agricultural area. So if you look into it, we are the topmost cultivable land and arable land in the world, whereas we followed by United States. You just look into Israel right now. It's they are having only 25% of the Tamil Nadu size for agriculture arable land. So next slide, please. So when you talk about agriculture, agriculture, we have to talk about this land distribution. It plays a major role in the productivity. So I will go to the next. So if you look into India, almost 80% it's small farmers only who have less than 5 acres of land. Only 20% we have other farmers. When you look into US, excuse me, previous slide please. When you look into US, 96% are farmers are large level farmers only. Only 4% of farmers are small farms they have. Next slide, please. So that's what I took US as a consideration. If you look into the farmland size with the versus productivity, in the US, almost 90, as I told, 96% are the large farms. But when you look in depth to it, only 2.7% of larger farms, which is more than 100 acres, they are holding the land of only 19.6%, where their productivity, if you look at it, they are giving 45.9% productivity. But when you look into the other small family farms, they are holding 89.57%, where they are operating 47.7% land, but their productivity is very less. It's only 21.1% only. Next slide, please. So major challenges in Indian agriculture, as I told, we have a more number of small farmlands, and 80% of agriculture is purely based on the surface water, which has direct impact by varying the natural rainfall. You can see in the image that the red marks are a drought period. That period, if you see now, our agriculture productivity is very less. Next. Okay, 60% of the applied water is we are losing in the agriculture. And the shrinking farms, that is the one more thing we have to concentrate. If you look into it, 1976, 77 and all, our grandfathers, they used to have 2 hectares of land, but right now it has come down to 1.08%, maybe that because of family partition. But one survey shows that in 2035, 36 and all, it will go below 0.5 hectares. So that is something we have to look in. Next slide, please. So solutions to issues in India, as I told, we have a very small farm. So in a simple example, I would like to tell you, if we have 100 hectares of land, we can make 10 to 15 bore wells, and we can make one reservoir over there in the field itself, and we can distribute the water from there to the crop. But whereas when we have single 1 hectares into 100 hectares, each one of you need a water source. So each one hectare we have to put borewell. So if you put 100 borewells in 100 hectares, you just imagine how the groundwater we can manage. So that is the main issue we are facing right now in India. So group farming would be the better option, because we cannot change the land title. And I will explain about micro irrigation in the later slides, and the water reservoir to the field, like how TANGEDCO or Tamil Nadu EB, they are working. The water department also, they have to work like that. I think in near future we may get it. We will get the water meter in each one of our house or in the farmland. I think it's going to happen. Maybe if we are wasting the water like this. And technology update. When the technology update, if you go for one farmer for a small piece of land, it's not to give you a proper result. So when you go for a group of farmers, it is a good thing for a group actually. Right from the procuring to the harvesting, it gives a lot of advantages. So micro irrigation, it has 4 types. First one is drip irrigation. Drip irrigation is nothing but from the well, we will take the water and we will give to the root zone of the crop in the surface manner. Next one. It's a sprinkler irrigation, that is also same, but we are giving the water in the rain format. Third one. It's a spray irrigation actually. In US, in the large farms only, they will use these kind of technologies. And next one. Subsurface irrigation. This is something new technology. We never put a pipe over there in the field. We used to put the pipe in the subsurface, and we will give not to the root zone of the crop, we will give the water only to the root actually. So right now in Tamil Nadu, our Sinmark, we are doing all the sugar canes under this subsurface irrigation only. So government initiatives, if you take a look into the micro irrigation, This micro irrigation is run by the PM-KSY scheme in India. Their motto is per drop, more crop is their logo, and they are having allotment of 6,000 crore for a year in 2021-22, of which central service they already allotted 3,645 crores. TN is the second top position after Karnataka when we compare to 2015-20 data. Last year, 2021, under the leadership of Gagandeep Singh Bedi, recently he became a commissioner of Chennai. So under his leadership, we achieved the tops the table actually last year. Next one. So in Tamil Nadu, if you look at it, 100% subsidy they are giving for small and marginal farmers who has lesser than 5 acres of land. Next one. Farmers having over 5 acres land get 75% of the total cost of the MI subsidy, but the land ceiling would be maximum 12.5 acres only. Next one. So the coverage under MI, if you look at it in 2013-14, this micro irrigation, they covered only 4.32 lakh hectares, where in 18-19, if you look at it, they covered almost 11.58 lakh hectares. Next one. So next one. So these are the financials, and if you look into the, excuse me, previously, please. If you look into the agriculture GDP, that red mark showing the drought year. But in 2018, if you look into it, almost 2.75 to 2.75% we achieved in irrespective of very bad rainfall. The reason behind this, it's maybe purely a micro irrigation. They covered more areas. Next one. So the total coverage so far, as I told earlier, in India we have 1,570 lakh hectares of arable land, out of which so far under the micro irrigation they covered only 83 lakh hectares. So if you get into the picture, it's only 5.3% we covered under micro irrigation. Remaining 95% it's available. So you can imagine the market size of the industry now. So this is something, some of the other technologies, mulching in open field. In this, they will lay the pipe, drip pipe in the surface, and they will plant, and they will cover with the plastic sheet. It gives evaporation loss. It's very minimum in mulching sheet. At the same time, the roots will not get the fungus. In Chennai, around Chennai, Chengalpattu, Madurai, for watermelon crop, more farmers they're aggressively doing this mulching in open field system. We did almost 275 hectares over there. And the next one is a polyhouse. Actually, for growing a crop, we need our traditional technology. What it shows that we need soil, water, and sunlight. But new technologies, they want to grow without that actually. So if you look into the polyhouse, they don't use soil and all. They use smart soil, which means it has a coir pit over there. So they never use the soil. So with the coir pit, they will grow the plant. Next. So next is vertical farming. This is one of the advanced technology. So vertical farming is nothing but they don't use soil here. They will use only water for grow the crop. So basically, if you look into Japan and all, they don't have arable land for cultivation. They have to import more quantities for their daily needs. So they are going for this technology. So this vertical farming has 3 types. One is hydroponics, aquaponics, and aeroponics. So next one. Wait. So instead of, as I already told, vertical farming, they don't use water. And they don't use soil, they use only water. Instead of sunlight, they started using neon light and LED lights. So that's something new technology. So next one. So this hydroponics, if you see, they don't use soil, as I already told. They use the nutrient water and they just pump to the root of the crop. With the water nutrient, it will grow. Next one. Aquaponics, it's something another technology is with the fish tanks. They will grow the crop because fish tanks, it has a rich ammonium process, so it will use as a nutrition for the crop to grow further. Next one. So aeroponics, it's this is next technology. It's like hydroponics only. Instead of pumping the nutrient water, they just spray only to the root zone of the crop. So with that, the crop will grow. So that is called aeroponics. Next slide, please. So it's a future. It's a future, as I already told. It's a smart farming. Smart farming, it's nothing but you can operate the farm with the phone actually. So almost everything on cloud base only. So smart control, smart analyzing and planning, we can get smart sensing and monitoring we can put. So whatever the timings we can manage. So these are all the future thing. But my point of view, this will not applicable for the small land holdings. But when we have a large land holding, we can go for this technology, because whatever we produce with the technology, ultimately to go into the product cost only. So if you produce with the technology with the rate of 100 or 200 rupees per kg of tomato, nobody will purchase in India, I think. So this is for good for large level farming. So let's come to Senmark. As I already told, we are into agriculture water management company, and me and my father, Mr. M. Muhammad Iqbal, we are the directors in this company. And you can see the image. It's the traditional farming actually. They use plenty of water, plenty of fertilizers. In the end result, they will lose their money. So history of Senmark, in 2011, I started this micro irrigation project, and I did a real market survey in Tamil Nadu. In 2012, we received the bank approval. In 2013, we started the commercial production. 2014, we received the BA certificate for this online and inland laterals, and we also received the TANHODA, which is running the PM-KSY subsidy scheme in India, and we received the approval for that. In 15-16, we optimized the 4-hole product. When we entered into the market, all our big companies, all our corporates, almost 9 Israeli companies we have to compete. And in India, if you look into it, almost 15 to 20 major players were there. So something we have to do with the product. So we just started a 4-hole product, because in each, if you look into the Israeli companies, they will give a single hole in the product, where in the pipe, where India in Tamil Nadu has a very pH ratio is differed. So the farmers, they got a very big clogging issue in drip pipes. So we overcome with the 4-hole product. In 2016-17, we had 9 dealers. Then 17-18, we started expanding our floor, and we grown up to dealer network. We grown to 17. In 18-19, almost 26,000 square feet. We completed the factory infrastructure, and we developed our network to 23 numbers. In 1920, we started off a commercial production of 6 holes and sprinkler pipes. So in 2021, we received the BA's approval for sprinkler pipes. So we started, we acquired the second land in Nilakottai for building up a second unit, and we grown. Right now, our dealer network is 85 numbers. So these are all the highlights of Senmark. We are the first BA's manufacturer for drip pipes in southern Tamil Nadu, installed more than 7,500 hectares in Tamil Nadu so far, and established a 6-hole production. And we are the first SSI to enter into the TANHODA registration for supply under subsidy scheme, and added an 85 dealer network in Tamil Nadu alone. And we have a strong position in Coimbatore, Dindigul, Krishnagiri, where the farmers are very aggressive and they plant more vegetables. We have a market share of almost 10 to 12% over there, even though very big companies are there, their presence. Having production capacity of more than 300 tons, we can cover up to 600 hectares per month right now with the capacity. And we have our own ERP system, and we started construction of our second unit in Sipcot, Nilakottai. And we did a polyhouse project called NAM project in Malaysia also. Next, please. So some of the future plans I have, it's planning to get into retail segment with the addition of CPVC pipes, water tanks, HDPE pipes, column pipes, etc. Because our community plays a major role in the retail segment. So if you look at it, that is better way. And expanding to all southern states of before 2023. So I would like to tie up with some of the other technological advancement companies like mobile automation, fertigation, etc. Next slide, please. So this is some of the pictures where we have a presentation in Davao, Philippines. Next one, please. So it's a team Senmark. We are a highly and motivated team, and our average age is only 28 years. And positive energy towards challenges. And to the shop floor, we took the ERP actually. Then members progress to the progress of the company, better facilities we provided over the course of period of time. Next one, please. So these are all some of the pictures of the company, and next one.
Thanks, Yasser. Very nice. A lot of energy you presented and a lot of fantastic data. I mean, 3 classroom போன மாதிரி இருந்துச்சு எனக்கு. All the water and all that. இல்ல தூங்கல ஃபுல்லா கேட்டேன். ஃபுல்லா கேட்டேன். எல்லாத்தையும் கேட்டேன். Because particularly the water 0.05% you're saying, that's amazing data. That's all தெரியவே செய்யாது. We always assume that there's a lot more water. And I think you're in a very, very niche area. Around water, agriculture. These are all soft spots for India. I'm sure you know that very well. And Tamil Nadu, it's a very important service. We really wish you. I think you have a lot of inspiration in Miran Saab, Dr. Abdullah, and now there's a lot of people you can look up to and see phenomenal work that they've done. And so maybe you should become a unicorn, sir.
Maybe, inshallah.
It will be good for the UEF story. And then I'm very happy that you're also second generation, pretty much like me in UEF. So thank you very much for believing in us and sticking around with us for such a long time. I'm sure we should pass on this to the next generation also.
Okay, inshallah.
Okay, yes, sir. So now you've gone for a unicorn now. That's plan. Plan for it. Think for it. So the Yoshimu just think, how we are able to do it, right? So thanks very much for the lovely presentation, Yasser. I think I'll pass it back to Kaleem. Yeah.
Thanks a lot, sir. Thanks a lot, Yasser, for your presentation. Yeah, last is basically the biggest strength of UEF, which is nothing but our educational institutes. There are so many educational institutes, and each and every institute has got its uniqueness through which they inspire. But according to us, as far as this institute is concerned, the name itself inspires. BSc Abdur Rahman University. We can go on saying about this, saying that it's almost 40 years of excellence in education, with more, close to 6,000 to 7,000 students, 400 plus professors and assistant professors. What exactly is the secret of their success? I would like to call upon the registrar, Dr. Azad Saab, to share about it to UEF members. Over to you, Azad Saab.
Assalamu alaikum. Good afternoon to all of you. I am very happy to be part of these presentations. I am amazed by the achievements of our people. I am also happy how our people have leveraged technology and hard work and reached such great heights. It is very encouraging. I feel very much, enthused about the whole thing. Now it is my privilege to speak about our BS Abdur Rahman Crescent Institute of Science and Technology. I will start with the slides. I will share the screen now. This is a bird eye view of Crescent. We are situated in Vandalur, near the forest area, one side forest, another side hills. It's a beautiful place to be. Our students like the environment very much. We'll go in. All of you know about Crescent Engineering College, right? It was the #1 self-financed engineering college in Tamil Nadu. Whenever seats are over in the Government College of Engineering, Gindi, which is 200 and more odd years old, the next choice after CEG was our Crescent Engineering College. So Crescent Engineering College was started in 1984 as the first 6 self-financing engineering colleges which were started. Before that, only about 7 government engineering colleges were there. In 1990, we went for AICTE approval, and then the degree was awarded in affiliation to Madras. At that time, it was in affiliation with Madras University. In 2000, we shifted from Madras University to Anna University till 2008. After 2008, we have become deemed to be university. So Crescent Engineering College has become BS Abdur Rahman Crescent Institute of Science and Technology. In 2012, we got the minority status, and in the first cycle itself in NAAC accreditation, we got the A grade. And I'm very happy to share with you that this year in the second cycle, we got A+. NAAC accreditation is like, Olympics medal. Beyond A plus, there is only A double plus. Generally, people go from A to A plus and then A double plus. So in 5 years, we may achieve the highest rank. But A plus is a very good rank for us, and it is the guidance shown by the management, the family members of Al-Hajj B.S. Abdurrahman Sir, and the hard work put by our faculty members and the contributions of our students. That's how we are able to see the A plus category. Our promoters, it was founder Al-Hajj Dr. B.S. Abdurrahman. Our chancellor is Mr. Arif Bukhari Rahman. Pro-chancellor is Abdul Qadir Rahman Bukhari. Our vice chancellor is Professor Peer Mohammed, former professor of Anna University. So this is the vision of our university. We are deemed to be university. So the university aspires to be a leader in education, training and research in multidisciplinary areas of importance, and to play a vital role in the social economic progress of the country in a sustainable manner. So the sustainable manner is liked by everybody. So our mission is to blossom into an internationally renowned institute, empower the youth through quality and value-based education, promote professional leadership and entrepreneurship, achieve excellence in all the endeavors and global challenges, excellence in teaching and to give a research ambience, network with global institutions of excellence, business, industry, and research organizations, to contribute to the knowledge base through scientific inquiry, applied research, and innovation. It's a huge task. The awards won by B.S. Abdurrahman Crescent Institute of Science and Technology speak for themselves. First of all, we got A plus. All over India, only 20 institutions have got A plus. So, and a few only got A double plus. 5 or 6 only got A double plus in the last 3 years. So it is a unique achievement. We are among the top 25 in one way. Next one is the National Board of Accreditation. It is for each program. For example, BTech Mechanical is a program. BTech Civil is a program. So in the first tier 1 format, the earlier format, we got 20 programs accredited. If a degree is accredited with NBA, they can go all over the world and practice as engineers or whichever specialty they are in. So our students are have a very good advantage of this NBA accreditation. Out of the 20, 10 are re-accredited for the second time, and the rest will follow. Likewise, there is a NIRF ranking. So this is a Indian national ranking for those institutions within India. So we were having good ranks both as engineering institution and university. I have already told you, we started as a Crescent Engineering College. So we are an engineering institute specializing in engineering disciplines. We are also a university. We have added many things like pharmacy, law, architecture, like that. Many things we have added, management. So now we are a university. In 2020, in engineering, our standing is 123. As a university, are 151 to 200. The competition is very tough because a large number of engineering colleges and universities have come up in India, especially in North India. The other ranks are in Asia, we got QS university rankings. In Asia, we are in the band of 551 to 600. And Times Impact ranking, there are 17 sustainable development goals. In that, we got different ranks under 4 categories. We competed in 4, and in all 4 we got the ranking. Then there is a regional ranking for QS. In India, we are 81 to 85. In the Times Impact ranking, we got very good ranks. The first one is education excellence, in which we got 301 to 400. Next one is energy management. Next one is water, and then the overall development. So when it comes to the water conservation, we recycle 100% of the water. There is no exit pipe from our university to outside. 100% of the water is recycled and then used. So that's why we are in the 101 to 200 in world rank. So another one is iGauge Diamond and then Star. These are all the awards given for variety of performance. The latest one which I am proud of is on the right side. It's called E-Lead. E-Lead means how much we are, e-learning excellence. That is, you know that once the pandemic started, when the lockdown started, we are now offering programs online. So this one measures how well we are prepared for this kind of online internet, electronics and computerization. So that's why it's called the E-Leadership Award. So we are one of the few people, few institutions which we got E-Lead. They check whether we are using all type of technology, education platform, are we using ERP effectively? Do we use, LCD project in the classrooms, LCD projects and things, whether the library is automated. So the entire thing is that I would like to share with you that we got 100 on 100. That means Crescent is using every kind of technology in for academic digitization. That is why we got this award. Next one is Atal ranking for innovation and achievement. This one, these are all the Innovation and Incubation Council certificates. Then Biospectrum Award. Like that, we have 5-star award. 5-star award means it is not a single award. Every 3 months, they review the working of our Crescent Innovation and Incubation Council. Put together, if the performance is good in the last 4 quarters, we receive 5-star. That is consistent performance. Apart from that, for clean and green campus, we have Swachh ranking. We got All India ranking, top 5. Then one student, one tree. Our students have planted a large number of samplings in our campus and also in Mahindra city. For that, we got one student, one tree award. For water management, we got Jal Shakti Abhiyan award. These are all government, central government awards. Then the Smart Campus Award, how well we use digitization, that is Smart Campus. Then we got a Data Quest first rank All India Award among the private institutions. Now I'll give you the view of our academic profile. One is that in 1984, if you see the lower left side, in 1984, Crescent Engineering College started with 3 departments. Now, if you see the right side, upper corner, it is 12 schools and 22 departments. We have grown phenomenally and we are still growing. So, if you see that engineering institutions, we have at the top School of Infrastructure, which is civil engineering, mechanical, electrical and communication, ECE, what they call, computer science, mathematics. Then we have a dedicated building, a School of Life Science, and we have dedicated building for Crescent School of Architecture, another for School of Pharmacy, then School of Law, School of Business, and then Physical and Chemical Sciences, Social Sciences and Humanities, and then Arabic and Islamic Studies. We are one of the unique institutions where we have a school for Arabic and Islamic Studies. So, you have seen the growth from technical engineering institution. Crescent has blossomed into a multidisciplinary university. What are the programs? I may not go into the details. You can see that we have many programs in that. So 29 UG programs and 20 PG programs and PhD in 20 disciplines. If you see this side, 29 UG, 20 PG and 20 disciplines of PhD. Then apart from that, from this year onwards, AICTE has approved that any engineering student, whether he is mechanical, civil or anything, they can obtain a engineering. He can take a minor degree program on artificial intelligence and machine learning, or blockchain, or data science. So augmented reality, like that they can do. Likewise, a computer science student can take industrial automation or GIS and remote sensing, like that. So they will get a minor degree program, and that will be useful. This is to prevent, a student who is interested in mechanical, today he wants to take computer science because he looks for a better perspective. In this case, when we have minor degree programs, we expect mechanical engineering students will remain in mechanical and take a minor degree program in computer science subjects. Research. So today, a university has to show good research potential. We have come a long way in this. If you see that on the lower left side, we have about 550 PhD scholars. If you see the publications, in 2015, it was 157 publication per year in 2015, that year. And now in 2019, it is 348, 2020, it is 316. So we have doubled the number of papers. Then number of citations means whatever research paper we are writing, are others quoting it. So that is very important. That means the more people quote, the more relevant is the research. So you see that in 2015, whatever the number of citations we had, 791, and here you see it is more than 2000 in 2020 and all that. Then H index shows the proportion, how many, the number of papers cited should be equal to the number of citations, like that. It shows that every year it should increase. So the H index is now from 20 to, it has crossed 54. So 54 articles published by our professors have been referred 54 times. So minimum, at least 54 times. Then there is I-10 index, that is 10 references. In 2014, 205 papers were referred at least 10 times. But now in 21, you see 392 papers have been referred 10 times. It shows that we are going strong in research. Then another important aspect is the funded projects that we have. This is the status of a funded project. So far, our people have received about 15 crores of funded projects. The funds come from departments of science and technology, AICTE funding, UGC funding, and biotechnology. Like that, various agencies give funding. So at present, we have 8.5 crores of ongoing funded projects are going. This is in 2014 to 20, 5-year period. Then our institute itself is giving seed money for those who are starting the research because they won't get funds. So we are giving seed money. We have given 2.62 crore worth of seed money from Crescent for the research. Our people have taken corporate projects for 2.67 crores. And then through testing and consultancy, the earning is 2.51 crore. So our people are doing research, projects, and also they do testing and consultancy. So you will find that Crescent is a very good place for knowledge. For example, you see that there's a biogas capacity we have installed in our campus. Here you see that the hybrid rocket motor. So to develop this, we got a research grant of 9.7 lakhs. And then in buildings, especially the concrete buildings, the steel rods become affected by corrosion. There is a technology to reduce the rate of corrosion or prevent it. It's called sacrificial anode technology. And again, in association with the IIT Madras, our professors are doing this work, and it got a grant of 29.8 lakhs. So patents, you know that the patenting is now being highly emphasized in India. Apart from either when you do a research, either you publish a paper or you patent it. Patents have a lot of commercial applications. In foreign university, they were for many decades they were insisting on patents. So at present, many of our schools are applying for patents, and a few of them have been granted so far. For example, recently we got 2 got granted, 28 published, and 9 are filed. We are waiting for the results. And then all of you must be already familiar with our Crescent Innovation and Incubation Council. It is where the startups are made. Within 2.5 years of its existence, it has broken many records. For example, at present, the number of startups in CAIC are 75. Very interestingly, we have 10 student startups. Many of our students, before completing the program, they are having their own companies. 10 faculty startups, 7 alumni startups, and external people are 38. So totally we have 75 startups, and you will find that we cover industry 4.0, life sciences, mobility and transportation, agriculture, many things are there. So they also receive a lot of 100 ones. There are 4 startups. Their project work, our own student whose project work have become a startup. For example, for fire extinguishing shell, one student got 12,000 rupees funding. I mean, these are all the initial funding. That is, our department gave this funding. Later he grew it, and then now they got a fund of 2 lakh rupees, and it is all becoming this one. So you are seeing that against each one. For fire extinguishing shell, this fellow got a Tamil Nadu Startup Award of 1.5 lakhs. And for mitigation of NOx emission, once again, there is an award, 10 lakhs grant, like that, Falcon, like that. The impact of CAIC is that they got investments from angel and venture capital. That is 41 crore investment, then 3.1 crore startup seed grant, like that. Employability for more than 400 males and 50 females. The sales turnover of all the activities of CAIC is 41.91 crores. Please understand, all these things achieved in the past 2.5 years, despite of having the COVID period within that for a year. So patent supported, frugal solutions, international partnerships, and we have a lot of national partnerships. So we have within CAIC, we also have other centers like entrepreneurship development, APJ Abdul Kalam Center for Innovation in Teaching and Learning, Center for Life Sciences, like that. We have many centers within CAIC. These are all our partners. Okay, ASSOCHAM, Bosch, Ashok Leyland, CAIC, like that. IIT Bombay. With IIT Bombay, we have a very good spoken tutorial program. We have a robotics center in our place. IC Academy, Madras Management Association. So with all the leading people, we have MOU. They are all active MOUs. Crescent is also showing a lot of interest in social development, very dedicated. For example, we have adopted 6 villages around our place, and there is a scheme called Unnat Bharat Abhiyan. It is not social service alone. It is not, cleaning a place or like that. You have to be fully involved in the economy and welfare of those villages. So you are seeing that our people go do the desilting of ponds, desilting of lake. Then they take classes, computer literacy in a government school. Then re-greening, bringing back the greening, then water management, and also legal counseling. Like that, our people, it is only a small list that is given here. Fantastic infrastructure. You will find that many of the buildings were designed by the best architects. So students like our campus very much. You are seeing that here we have a state-of-the-art convention center and seminar halls. Okay, these are all the 7-storied hostels. In all buildings we have lift. We have water facility. Very good playgrounds, sport facilities, gym. Crescent Canteen is popular among not only our students, those who visit our place. We have medical center, ambulance, and we have more than 45 vehicles for transportation. It is a 100% Wi-Fi campus, and we have a data center to support all our online teaching and learning process. Bookshop, stationery, ATM shop, library. Our library is completely automated, including RFID for all books. Then our library, we have subscribed to a record number of research journals, and the students can access them directly from their computer or cell phone. 168 classrooms, 127 labs, and 95% of the, I think almost now all classrooms are smart classrooms. We have LCD projectors and other facilities, mics and other facilities are there. So 15 lakh square feet of built up area. So it's a very, it's a clean and green campus. It is a, so as a result, the students have very good ambience for studying. Then now a lot of emphasis is given that not only studies, but there should be sports and cultural activities. It is almost compulsory now for all campuses. So Crescent takes a lead. We have very good basketball ground, cricket ground, football ground, all these things. And 400-meter athletic track with gallery, and then floodlit basketball court is there. You will find hostelers playing late in the evening. And then there's a tennis court, football, everything is there. We have a swimming pool, indoor table tennis, carom, chess, and other things are there. And then we conduct a large number of cultural events. We also allow our students to take part in cultural events in other colleges. They win a lot of medals and certificates. This is the automated library. I have already told you about it. So we have very good IT and ICT infrastructure. These are all the photographs of the campus life. Okay, that we have. And then we have a great alumni association where our alumni are all over the world. So these are all, there are many activities. Every month there are activities with alumni. So our faculty members are 448 with 248 with the PhD. Within 1 or 2 years, we will be almost 100% faculty members with PhD. So we also have a perspective plan. Next 10 years, what we are going to do, we have a perspective plan, and then we are going through it. I told you about Green Campus, and these are all the facilities of Green Campus, and a lot of electric vehicles, cycles, and maintenance of greenery. So again, one of the DNA of Crescent is entrepreneurship development, and we are seeing that. So we have future plans 20 based on our perspective program. So this is about Crescent. There are continuously challenges to Crescent, and we work very hard to meet the challenges. We are already in the last 3-year rankings. We are among the top 25 institutes in the country. We'll go much further. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Azad sir. Wonderful presentation. I think it's all people like you who make a big difference for institutions. And Munadi, we had Professional Courier Meeran Sahab Sonamari, all veterans like you coming in, supporting institutions makes a big difference. And of course, we get phenomenal support from the community, from various stakeholders. They all support us. Of course, we are always trying to raise the bar. And like you rightly said, we are constantly trying to enhance. I'm sure we will be getting the continuous support of the community members to take Crescent Story, B.S. Abdul Rahman Crescent Story way forward. So thank you very much, Dr. Azad. Wonderful presentation. Like I said, even with the other presentations, it is always a learning. Even though it is our institution, I'm getting to learn a lot more, when we make presentations like this. So thank you very much, Dr. Azad. So Kaleem, I think if we have some questions,
Sure,
please
sir.
post it on the room. Just read it up for Meeran Sahab.
Yeah, sure, sir. There was first from Habib Sahab. He wanted to ask one question each to Dr. Sahab and Meeran Sahab, sir.
Assalamu alaikum. I think it's a great initiative and it was a wonderful learning today. I have questions for everyone, but no shortage of time. And I have one question to Mr. Dr. Abdul Hasan and Meeran Sahab. Doctor, I mean, in the explanation was fantastic. The way you've grown. Immediately they all know you. The way you did service. So when are you moving to Chennai? You need to come to Chennai. That's most important because your service is not just you have all your people here. So we are expecting you here. Any support from us, we'll do. And the question to Dr. Meeran Sahab, wonderful, I think very humble beginning you had, and what a wonderful way you came up and related us. Sir, you on the courier business, the last few years, the technology improved. Courier letter, technology, email, and e-commerce has come up in a very big way. Amazon, Flipkart, and the Mari. So in the Mari time, how do you expand your what is your the courier business with your future and
Habib Sahab, Assalamu alaikum. Still, I have got a lot to do in Erode. Erode இன்னும் நிறைய என்ன எதிர்பார்த்துக்கிட்டே இருக்கு. பட் இருந்த இடத்துல பண்றோம். இந்த இடத்துலயே நிறைய வேலை பண்ணிக்கிட்டே இருக்கிறோம். Moving to Chennai is not in my agenda, but I have two sons. They are also, maybe marrying doctor wives only, doctor brides only. So I will not compel them to stay with me. If they want to come to Chennai, I will support them. I will help them to establish their own venture in Chennai. But I have got another venture on my hand, that is our medical college project. Inshallah, if God gives me some years, I will be able to finish that project. So thank you very much for inviting me to Chennai anyway. I only wanted to prove my medical fraternity that how much a doctor can do. What is the power of a doctor, who could really make an impact in the society. More than being an intellectual, diagnosing diseases, treating patients, curing diseases. There is a lot of things you can do in the society and create a good impact in the society. That's what my objective is. I am very happy that I am inspiring lots of young doctors here, not only here, throughout the India, that people kind of making me as a role model. That makes me very, very happy to work more. So thank you all for your cooperation. Habib sir, thank you.
Chennai
question. I am Ahmed Bina. A question put by you towards me. You are right that because of modern digital world technology and all, we also lost business. We lost business from banks and other institutions. At the same time, initially our company was almost doing 100% document business initially when we started the courier company. Later on, we moved into picking up parcels also slowly. And now we start picking up parcels, pharmaceutical parcels, medicines and samples, other items, spare parts. Even we are moving commercial items like bridges, fridges and other things. So we are now we handle more than 50% parcels and 50% documents. Likewise, we are changing our pattern also. This way we, and also regarding e-commerce also, we, as I told you, e-com, see these companies like Flipkart and Amazon and all, they have exclusive delivery system for their products because delivery is very important for them. Whereas we are a courier company. Go into a e-com delivery is a different kind of setup. We need to train the courier boys how to deliver, how to collect the money. We have two things, a COD as well as a prepaid delivery. So it's a different kind of business concept. So we have to try the courier boys accordingly. We are also doing that. So according to the system, we'll change our. We are changing ourselves. Also, we adopt modern technology. We are implementing TTS tracking system. Everything we are also doing. Inshallah.
Thank you.
Assalamualaikum, Miran. Very inspiring to hear what you said. Very, very inspiring. Although I've seen you since 1987.
Yeah.
I mean, to hear the story the way you said it, mashallah, so inspiring. I think we need more people like you in our community. But this is a question from one entrepreneur to another entrepreneur. And my question is that if you had a chance to rebuild your business all over again, what are the things that you wouldn't do and what are the things that you would do?
Yeah, it's a nice question, alhamdulillah. If you allow me to restart the business, as I told you, I started on a franchise system. There's a basic system. But I say that one way it is good. In franchise model, the risk is decentralized. Our risk is very limited. Being a principal company, our risk is limited. Whereas the franchises are putting their efforts, putting their money, putting their work. So one way it is good. At the same time, we also have difficulties in bringing a uniform system among our franchises, because people have as we have 1,400 franchises across India, their thinking is different. Their spending, the way they want to save money is different. They want to in the way in which they want to maintain the quality is different. So it is very difficult to maintain equality, to maintain a common uniform system across India. So if you allow me to restart, definitely I will start them. See this company, of course, we need to create a franchise system, but in a different model. For example, in DTDC, desk courier company, they have main hubs in each and every city. They have their own office in Chennai, in Tirupur, Erode, Salem, Coimbatore, or to take Jammu or Kashmir, Kanyakumari, or any place. Likewise, they have main hub system, main offices, and under the main offices they have appointed franchises. So this will be a better system, so that we can have a control in each and every city. Right now, I don't have any control. If something goes wrong in for example, in Nagarkoil, as a franchisee already is functioning, I don't have much power to go and disturb the system, because already it is an established system, and it is like rocking the boat. So I need to be very careful in removing him or in disciplining him. That's a minus point I have. So that's why I told you that when you give a chance, that I will see that I have my own offices everywhere, and under my own offices we'll add in and around to the cities with their system. I hope that my answer might have given a solution for you.
Yeah, because all of us have what you can call afterthoughts. Today I have afterthoughts after 30 years about how I could have built my business.
Yeah.
Which is why I asked you. And how is it that we can synergize between, United Economic Forum is also about synergizing with each other as to how we can help each other and how we can help each other grow as well.
Yeah.
Does anything come to your mind? For example, you are in the space of services. You are basically a service industry.
Yes, right.
For example, I'm in the space of product. I'm a product industry. So somebody else, for example, I heard two other people. One is, of course, Dr. Abul Hassan. And of course, then I heard about the water irrigation project. I mean, what is it that we can do to synergize between each other and grow our community together? Because today the need of the hour is that I think as much as we have leaders in our community and we have beacons in our community, I don't think we are talking about our achievements the way other communities are talking. And I'm just wondering, is it because of the fact that we're all working in silos? And do you think that that could change in the event that we come and we form a union where we can talk in a unified voice? Of course, I'm thinking aloud. So please forgive me if my thoughts are not exactly in the order that they should be, but I think you can get a gist of it. So, for example, what is it that we can do today where, for example, your company and our company can synergize and help each other grow? I mean, you don't have to answer me right now as well, but even offline, we both can talk about it. But I think that is also a huge need of the hour.
Yeah, I agree with you. Definitely, we can work together. We can, as you said, we can work together in some, as you are in the product in the business, I'm in the service industry. Definitely, likewise, we can work together with our counterparts of each and everybody of UF and do something. I'll come back to you, inshallah.
Okay, thank you very much.
Ahmad, a small suggestion from my side. These are beautiful meetings, but I think 2 hours is too long, Ahmad. I mean, we should cap it much earlier because attention span is not 2 hours for me. I don't know about anybody else, but I have to be honest with you. And I think that
Kaleem, you have to make sure that we could finish it off in 1.5 hours. It's very important.
No, so a presentation should not exceed more than 15 minutes. We should have a cap on it.
Yeah.
Because then you'll have more people coming back to these meetings. Today, I see a population of 38 people. I think we should ensure that we get 50, 60, 70 people. And that will be like 1 hour.
Initially, it was more than 50. I think initially it was more 50, more than 60. Now they have left. Yeah.
1.5 hours, 1.5 hours is the cut-off time maximum. But all the presentations, how do I put it? They were all very interesting presentations. I didn't have the heart to come and tell anybody because everybody is so enthusiastic about what is going on. I know it's injustice to the great work that everybody does. Each one needs an hour for presentation. Unfortunately, we don't have the luxury of time to have 1 hour presentation for each company, although very much we'd like to do it. So yes, point well taken, Hanif. We'll try to see how to keep it.
Instead of 4, at least 3 people in per session.
We did the calculation because if we keep 4 people with the number of members that we have, it'll take 2 years before we even cover the number of members we have. It'll take 3 years actually by the time everybody presents, unless we have 2 sessions a month. Right, and I don't know how keen people are to have 2 sessions a month, right? So
I remember, Ahmad, you did this on the podium at UEF meetings. You gave everybody 3 minutes to speak, in front of so many people, and there were some 300 people. I still remember the first one, which we did in 2014 at ITC. We had 3 minutes to talk. So, okay, not 3 minutes, I get it. But even 12 minutes is more than enough to talk as long as you can present it well. So 12 fours are 48, and then maybe 12 minutes of interaction, 1 hour, and then we can wrap up.
1 hour, You saw, now it's almost 2 hours. We're still not fully.
It's more than 2 hours, Ahmad. It's 4:07.
The problem is you have professors like Professor Azad, they are used to giving lectures. All of us are teachers. I know he finds it difficult, and I've seen this with other professors also.
Yeah.
Enthusiastic about presenting.
I was not told about the time limitation.
Oh, yeah.
Say, Ahmad, it all comes back to you.
I'll pass it on to you. Anyway, UEF office will try to make sure.
Yeah, we will address it going forward.
So, since we are in lockdown now, I think maybe another 2-3 weeks also is going to go. I think we can have one more. We have 2. In these lockdown months.
Sure, but we'll see what we can do. We are more than happy to organize. Very happy because it's so informative, getting to know so much. I'm really excited. I know it took a little longer than estimated. But I'm sure you'll all agree they were wonderful presentations. Yes. No, absolutely. I was all right. So it was. This time it was wonderful, but we will definitely try to keep it within 15 minutes. And my request is for everybody to come on time, so that we can also finish it off. Because the time shoots 5-10 minutes later, the whole program starts late. And then, that 5-10 minutes adds up towards the end. So if everybody's there on time, maximum we'll try to cover it within the scheduled time, and we'll request all the speakers to keep it within 10-12 minutes. Kalim, I think you should make a request for 10-12 minutes. I think that's
and the numbers
for people to.
And the numbers also less. I think even non-UEF members also can be called. We have a big database.
Sure.
Collected. If 100 people, then it'd be really nice.
Yeah, I agree with you. Everybody part of the Baba. We'll try to get more attendance. So thank you very much, everybody. Thank you. Valuable suggestions for presentations, for participating. Really, really, really appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you.